Did you know that outside of America, praising things like family values, homemaking, and good old-fashioned manners could get you written up by major publications like the BBC and The Sun and accused of being a Nazi? Think about that for a second. This happened to my guest today. She lives in England and is the author of Ladies Like Us, where she documents how she learned to love her feminine identity and leave feminism in the workforce. Her second book, English Etiquette, was released in the spring of 2019, which is basically a modern field guide to good manners and family life with a time-honored spin. And the way that I found her was through her gorgeous blog called The Darling Academy, which focuses on things like etiquette. Well, in January 2020, she was slammed in the media for being a traditional wife in pretty much every major news publication you can think of. People across Europe couldn't believe that there was a woman that existed who thought submitting to her husband was a good thing, who chose family over having a career. You know, she must have been some kind of white supremacist, they thought. Through that, the apron-clad army was born. Women in Europe and all over the world related to my guest because they were tired of being told that women were only worth anything if they acted like men. In a continuation of our May is for the Mom series, I'm very excited to host housewife, mother, author, etiquette expert, and Brit, Alena Pettitt of the Darling Academy on the Spillover. And P.S., speaking of the May is for the Mom series, make sure you listen to this whole episode because I have an announcement at the end. Alena, you are an etiquette expert. You created the Darling Academy. What is that? And then how do you define the word etiquette?
Okay. Well, I've always been interested in etiquette ever since I was young. It's very strange. I was that weird child who, would be interested in the way that you set a table and the way that you treated people. And as I was growing up, I realized, as I was looking more and more into etiquette, I was realizing that everything out there was about social climbing. And I think that there's this really bad misconception about etiquette. It's about people kind of getting one up on one another, making people feel uncomfortable. And I couldn't find a book that I liked on the subject. So I wrote one myself because actually I think etiquette's more about how you treat other people. So it's weird. I call it the Darling Academy because I had these grand visions of like opening a school one day, which has yet to come to fruition. But I think that's the crux of it all is etiquette is about how you treat other people and more importantly, how you treat yourself, first and foremost, about feeling comfortable in any situation because your self-esteem is quite high. So in a good way, you can have positive self-esteem that can be quite destructive as well.
Yeah, in your early teens and 20s even, you didn't really feel like you fit in. Can you talk about the impact that had on you as a young woman?
Yes, absolutely. Pop culture really did a number on me, I think, because I just didn't grow up in a time where etiquette and living kind of, I want to say, a really loaded word these days, ladylike lifestyle. I grew up, the Spice Girls generation, Britney Spears was just coming through as I was kind of like, going through puberty, and it did not fit whatsoever. But because I was so desperate to fit in, I think most teenage girls are, and even women in their 20s went along with it. And it really didn't feel right. And I discovered as I got a little bit older that I wasn't the only one that felt that way.
You kind of went through like a quarter life crisis or something that just totally left you shattered emotionally. What did you realize about your life in your early 20s?
Yeah, I realized I didn't have any positive role models whatsoever in my life, but also in the media that guided me, that transitioned me out of that kind of like Sex and the City lifestyle into motherhood and embracing kind of those feminine urges to, not all women have them, but, to be a wife and a mother. There's still isn't. And that's kind of what I do with the Darling Academy now is advocate and try and wake people up to the fact that there's no positive role models for mothers these days, particularly in England. A little bit different in America from what I've noticed. But yeah, there is nothing to look to whatsoever.
Well, and
you positive and wholesome.
you had this big fancy career, which is one of the core tenets of second wave feminism. You know, they fought for that. They said every woman should have the right to work. If they get that, they're finally going to find joy and fulfillment. And it didn't really work out for you that way. What do you think was missing from your life as a career woman?
Oh gosh, what was missing? Everything, I think, because my life literally just became about a career. I grew up watching Sex and the City. I wanted to work in media. I ended up working in the beauty industry, surrounded by, all the glamorous things, even, everything that was popularized by MTV at the time, like Laurie Conrad, working in fashion. And I mean, don't get me wrong, for a career, it was a fun one in terms of the opportunities I had. But it was just so empty and devoid of normal human interaction, I found, and a sense of home and a sense of belonging. You just go, 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 go all the time. Work is fulfilling. Work is fulfilling. I used to commute for an hour a day on the London Underground into central London, doing my work. Majority of it was incredibly stressful, and would sit there on the tube on the way home, and people were just zoned out. There was no social life. You couldn't meet anyone. You couldn't, or if you did, it was like heavily, like people were drinking heavily, almost to self-medicate just how stressful this amazing career we were all promised was. And I realized there was no work-life balance whatsoever. And even when I moved out of London and was still working in the same career, I think just the drive that you are told to have, and therefore you almost put on this mask, it's destructive. It really destroyed me. It destroyed my self-esteem. I found myself drinking heavily just to cope with it, really, and something had to give. And for me, it was my entire career.
Had you met your husband at that point or not yet?
Yeah, I had, thankfully. I mean, I dated quite a few guys who didn't show any promise of being able to look after me if I gave up my career. And actually, I went on British television on quite a popular TV show, Breakfast News, and they were like, your husband wrote your resignation letter for you, didn't he? Trying to make him sound really controlling, like he was, trying to get me home to make his sandwiches or something. But he did it out of love, because he saw how destroyed I was by this idea that I had to have this career.
Wait, so your husband writes your resignation letter. People in England thought that he was doing that because he was basically like holding you hostage and being like, my woman can't work, which wasn't the case. What did the resignation letter say that he wrote?
It's hilarious, actually. I wish I'd kept a copy. The reason why he wrote the resignation letter is because I was scared of resigning, because I didn't have a job to go to. I also was working in an incredibly toxic environment, and the resignation letter basically said, I'm not working my notice. I'm not going to fulfill my contract. I cannot stay here anymore. So he wrote it because I was just too scared. He recognized that, I felt trapped in that career. I wish I kept a copy, but it was very much, I'm not staying here.
The idea, though, to have a husband that he is caring for you and taking care of you in that way, he was protecting you and your emotional state. Like, I think that's one of the most romantic things I've ever heard.
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, I should correct the story there. We weren't married at the time. This was a couple of years before we were married. We were living in sin. I think people get quite shocked sometimes that I did that, because I talk now, about my mistakes and the things I do differently. But yeah, we weren't actually married at the time. I didn't have a job to go to, and I was actually a stay-at-home girlfriend for an entire year.
What? A stay-at-home girlfriend? That's very popular on TikTok. Have you ever seen that?
I know. I'm not on TikTok, but I have heard about it. I've heard about these stay-at-home girlfriends. It was a great trial run for us, actually, because he really demonstrated to me that he loved me enough to provide for me. So,
yeah. So
was dangerous.
You totally change course. You go from being the city girl, working girl, to moving to the country, living there, kind of being a homemaker. Was it difficult for you going from the city to living, fully immersed in this quieter lifestyle, eventually then as a wife and a mother? Or was it difficult to make that transition for a little bit?
It definitely wasn't difficult in the sense that it's what I always wanted, but my mindset needed to catch up with the physical. So I was very much going through the motions at the time. Oh, great, I'm here, I'm living my life, the life I always wanted. But I realized that my self-esteem had been really quite destroyed in the process, and I didn't know who I was. It's almost like I had pretended to be someone else for so long, I forgot who I was. And I had a real, like you touched on earlier, like a real crisis of confidence at about 26 years old. I had my husband. I had my home in the country. I had my baby. Amazing. But I had been conditioned for so long to be someone else. And no one was going, hey, it's okay now to embrace this. I'm really happy to run my household like I used to run my career. Because I'm not just sat at home doing nothing. I'm, working the home and operating it. So it's been an interesting ride, that's for sure.
Well, all of this dawns on you that there's no representation of media of homemakers and stay-at-home moms in a positive way. And I think I want to write about it and speak out about it. So you do this in 2020. The BBC comes after you for talking about, I really believe in traditional values in being a wife and a stay-at-home mom. What did they say? What did you say that was so controversial that the state media had to get involved?
Quite hilarious, actually. I think first and foremost, they might have met their match because they turned up and I think they were expecting me to be some kind of Stepford wife who could be pushed around and who didn't know what she was doing. And I've worked with some really brutal people in my time in the media. And I also I worked in marketing, so I know how to spin a story and get attention. And I noticed it all the time with sensational headlines. I wrote this article. I submitted to my husband like in 1959, and it was to get attention basically from these people because I want them to go, oh my goodness, what's this? And one read it and go, oh, I see where she's coming from. But they didn't. They just saw that and thought I was the worst thing ever, public enemy number one, a white supremacist Nazi. And it just went nuts.
So the being a stay-at-home wife and mom got pigeonholed and it escalated to them calling you a skinhead Nazi?
A white supremacist Nazi. It's the worst thing you could be. It's honestly, being a housewife is right up there with Hitler these days.
This is what the BBC said?
Yes, pretty much. And you see it all the time. I get attacked, on social media by, funnily enough, young women who don't have husbands or children who seem to think that I'm telling women to stay home, that women are only good for having babies, and that I don't know where the racism comes from. I do think there are some slightly random people out there who hijack the movement and say that women, think very fundamental Christian.
Why are these people so threatened by the idea of a stay-at-home wife and mom that they have to then slander you by calling you a Nazi and a white supremacist? I don't understand. That's blowing my mind.
I know it blows my mind too. I honestly have no idea. I think they're threatened because we live in an age where people like things very black and white. So it's like, you have, when we love labels, you're gonna leave school, you're gonna do this, you're never ever to rely on a man, ever in your entire life. Even when you marry him and have babies, not ever rely on man because he man bad, woman good, man bad.
Of course, yeah.
I don't know if you've ever had that experience.
Oh, yes.
That's what I grew up with. The message. Men are just terrible and disgusting.
Yeah, they say They say the future is female. Like, forget the men. We don't need them. We're independent women.
I know. I've got a son. It's interesting to try and explain that to him, but I've got no idea why housewives are threatening.
I love on the Darling Academy, which is, it's like there's a blog and all kinds of stuff that you have on your website. And you have been very open about what you feel like have been past mistakes that you've made to help other young women kind of learn from those. And, sometimes I think girls think, well, okay, if I were to go and start living in this more traditional way, or say, oh, my greatest aspiration is to be a stay-at-home mom, for example, that they would be frauds. Like, well, I can't do that because that's not how I've been living my life for so long. How can a woman forgive herself from her past mistakes and make changes if she wants to without feeling guilty?
Because you can. You can do that. It's only the world that tells you that you should be ashamed of your past mistakes. Your past mistakes help you grow and they shape your character. And I've done some terrible things. I've had really inappropriate relationships. I've taken recreational drugs. I've binge, done binge drinking, all that kind of stuff. And look at me now. You can change. You can improve. This is the whole thing. We live in a culture of self-improvement. It's just another way to self-improve, right? You can, and there's nothing worse than someone who sits there and he's very pious and tells other people that they're doing life wrong. Who are we? No one's perfect whatsoever. You can change your life tomorrow if you want to. The only person that's living your life is you. And this is what's frustrating about these women as well that attack me and troll me. I'm not telling you what to do. If you don't want to be a wife and a mum, that's fine. But I feel like you're trying to tell me not to do it, and that's not right, and I'm going to stand up for that.
There's a lot of tradwives now in America embracing the I only wear dresses trend. What do you think about that?
Well, I tried that myself, actually. Which
How did
is
it
really
go?
Interesting. I wrote an article on it because I felt like during the 90s, which is when I grew up, femininity, gosh, these words are so lengthy. This is a whole different discussion in itself. But dressing femininely and girly, I want to say, a little less Britney Spears, a bit more kind of like Doris Day, just really wasn't cool. And yeah, actually, that's what I personally find attractive. And I think a lot of the trad wives, and I have been guilty of using that label myself, but actually it's becoming a bit toxic. So I'd like to move away just a little bit. And I tried it, but not for anybody else, not for an acceptance, not to appear like a trad wife, not because my husband told me to, just because it made me feel good. And I think that's the thing, the whole trad wife thing is becoming a little bit religious in that sense. It's like,
it really is.
You're not modest, so that doesn't make you a good housewife. Or, you wear trousers. I'm wearing jeans today. I tried it for a period of not wearing jeans, but actually I thought, they're practical. They're practical for my life. I'm going to wear jeans. Tomorrow, if the sun's out, I'm going to wear a dress. But yeah, the trad wife are getting a little bit silly.
I stayed overnight with a friend recently and I took out my skincare products and she sees Nimi stuff and she was like, oh my gosh, you really do use Nimi. And I was so offended. Dude, I have been in broadcasting and media for 11 years and I have never, ever in my career endorsed a product that I did not like or use. I promise you that. I actually anger a lot of salespeople because I say no a lot. I never want to be that person that you feel is just shilling products for a quick buck. So when I recommend something, you can trust that I truly use and love it. And that is the case with Nimi Skincare. I was so impressed when they sent me some products to try that I basically begged them to let me talk about them on the Spillover just so more people could hear me sing their praises. Between the vitamin C cleanser and the retinol-infused hydrating moisturizer and their commitment to conserving femininity, faith, freedom, and family, it is one of my favorite brands to recommend. Their price point is incredible, too. You can get an entire 3-step skincare routine for under $100. Try Nimi today at nimiskincare.com with code Alex Clark for 10% off. That's NIMI skincare.com with code Alex Clark for 10% off, or just check out the link in the show notes. What is the polite way for a pregnant woman or a new mother to respond when someone asks, "So, when are you planning on getting back to work?"
Oh, yeah, I still get that. My son's 10.
And they ask
So,
you when you're going back to work and he's 10?
yeah. Oh, actually, I think most of my circle know what I do now. So I think it would be a bit dangerous for them to start asking me. But yeah, they started asking very, very soon. And I think that question is quite nuanced in the sense, you know, in this day and age, it's very hard, particularly in Britain, for a family to survive on just one income. So I think it's a cultural norm now for women to return to work because they have to, not necessarily because they want to.
Yeah.
So I think a polite way, if your finances are such that you can stay home, then the way I would approach it is I would say, you know, Mike and I have discussed it, and for the next few years, we'd like to for me to stay home whilst the children are small. And that's it. Shut up. You don't have to justify any further. Or you could just say, oh, I don't know. We're fine as we are for now. That's the polite way. You don't have to justify yourself. I think that's the politest thing, is to one short statement and leave it at that. And then if someone comes back at you and says, oh, aren't you bored? Then you could really, then etiquette could go out the window as far as I'm concerned.
I love you. There's a lot of women that might feel trapped like you did in their corporate job and are wanting to go home, and they're married and maybe their husband also wants them to stay home, but they're worried, how can my family afford this? How can we afford to live off of one income? What is your advice for couples to achieve this dream if they feel like they are facing a financial roadblock in getting there?
Yeah, that's really hard. I don't think you could give one definitive answer to that. The thing that's the most important is to get out of debt. I don't think anyone would feel quite comfortable and have a comfortable life, even just in terms of anxiety, like financial anxiety, if you're dealing with debt as well as obviously trying to live on one income. So, I mean, there's loads of programs out there. I know Dave Ramsey is very popular over in America.
Yeah, he is.
So, yeah, getting out of debt is the most important thing. And then, I mean, I don't want to use the word sacrifice, but there are things that, we could afford if I went back to work. And we've decided that our priorities are such that it's more valuable to us for me to stay home than the value of extra cash.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to search your heart in that way as well. Sit down, crunch the numbers, can do it. You might have to do without something, but actually what you get in return is worth more than money in some scenarios.
Let's talk about navigating politics at a dinner party, okay? Like where you may not personally know anyone very well. This happens all the time to Americans. People at the table assume that you think one way, and maybe the reality is you disagree with everyone at the table, but you don't know these people very well. Is it polite to challenge another guest on what they're saying about politics at a dinner party where you don't know anyone?
Or it depends on how much alcohol you consume. It's not a cultural norm here in England whatsoever. Politics is very much kept behind closed doors. I think you might discuss with your husband or your very close friend, perhaps, but even then it's a little bit contentious. So it's just not something that we do whatsoever. You don't ask someone how much they earn, and you don't ask them how they vote.
Well, do you ask them how they feel about Harry and Meghan?
Yes. But only if you trust them and you wait for them to go first. And then if you have a differing opinion, the polite thing to do is to keep your mouth shut.
Okay, fabulous. So Americans are talking politics and what political party you are. And then in England, you're like, Harry and Meghan, what are they going to say?
Yeah, it's funny, actually. The majority of us actually do feel the same way, unless you've got a connection to America, in which case tread very carefully. Yeah, I think that I don't think an English person would necessarily invite a conversation at a dinner party about politics, necessarily, unless you're there in a setting whereby you've been invited because you're going to discuss politics. And with regards to etiquette, it depends on how confident you are, I think, because when it comes to politics, you're always going to offend somebody. So it depends on how diplomatic you are.
Yeah.
And so whether you can handle the heat at the end of the day. I mean, I don't think personally that etiquette, it's good etiquette to discuss politics at the dinner table, but if it comes up, it's for every person to decide for themselves how far they want to take it. I can't imagine it ending very well sometimes.
There's a huge trend here in the States of women wear leggings everywhere for every occasion. Candace Owens, I don't know if you know who she is. She's like a big political commentator. Okay. So Candace Owens recently called out women who wear leggings every single day and said that you at least should put on jeans, even if it's to take your kid to the park, that leggings are unacceptable and that we've gotten too lazy as women with our wardrobes. Do you also think that women should dress up to run errands?
Oh, I think it would be nice if they did. I'm going to give a very diplomatic answer here. Personally, do I like to gaze upon someone wearing leggings? No, I don't. I don't think it's attractive. I also don't feel attracted in them, so that shaped my view of it. But should women? I mean, are we going to start dishing out rules now? That's the thing. This is the problem. I think they should. I think self-esteem wise, I mean, unless she's a real gym bunny, I think that showing it all off is like the best way to show off their body. I don't know, to each her own. But I do think that as a society, we need to stop being lazy. I agree with Candace there. We do need to stop being lazy. And also, I've noticed, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, when I dress up better, I get treated better. And you have a better life because of it, because you're respected a bit more. It's just the way human nature is. I mean, if you're going to go into a shop looking like you've been dragged through a hedge, then people aren't going to treat you very nicely. You're not going to get great service. Same with the restaurant. Like if you look terrible, people do judge. It's just human nature. We judge. If you make an effort, you feel better about yourself. People will respond to you better. So psychologically, yes, I would say dress up.
Spicy, I like it.
Yeah, rules-wise, I'd be nervous to start doing that. I get enough heat saying what I do already. I don't want to get into leggings.
Yeah, I know. What are some effective ways to teach children about etiquette?
Oh, model it. Absolutely model it. That we learn from our parents. I learned from my parents. My son has learned from me, and have a really open narrative. So, for example, my son would come home from school and say something that happened. Girls apparently are starting very mean at the age of 10 years old. His girlfriend jumped him about 2 days ago.
Oh my gosh.
Girlfriend at 10, but just a silly little playground thing. And I was like, well, what did she say to you? She said I was really horrible and she'd been telling other girls to not go out with me and say mean things. And we discussed how she might be feeling and how that might be, influencing her behavior and what she says. And then I say to him, what can you do to respond? How, do you want to be mean to her back? Or perhaps maybe you should just let her get over her feelings and next week just start talking to her kindly. It's an open narrative, I think. You can't give kids a rule book because they won't read it. But I think we learn mostly through seeing and modeling and open discussion and communication. That's the best way. Keep talking to your kids. Why do you feel this way? What can you do better? What did they say to you? How did it make you feel? Would you ever do that to them? How can you respond kindly?
So, and then as far as like good manners and things like that, besides modeling themselves, like, were you doing things with your son when he was younger? Like, okay, this is when you use this fork and this knife is for this and stuff. Like, do you do that?
We have one knife and one fork, like most people. I don't play an Edwardian dinner table. Like, some of it ended up on the floor as well when he was about 4 years old.
Okay.
No, no, I don't think, especially at 10 years old, I'm going to take him to anywhere that, needs snail forks and things like that. But, there were, sit up straight, The reason we do that is because it helps the food go into our tummies better. We're not going to get a tummy ache, like don't just bark instructions, explain all the time. That's what I found really, really helpful, is not just do this. It's, this is why we do this.
Yeah.
Use your napkin. You're going to make a mess of your shirt and then you won't be able to wear it again, or it will be uncomfortable because it's soggy and, mummy's going to have to wash it again. And, explain rather than just bark instruction at them.
Do you have any suggestions for how someone can start a traditional English library in their home? Like, what classics should absolutely be included?
Oh, gosh. Okay. Oh, all of the classics are the really cliche ones, but they're beautiful for a reason. So Dickens, Austen, but I feel like you guys know that already. It's all of the period drama stuff. Like, we lap that up as much as you guys do, because I think it harks back to an age of politeness that we would really like to see a return to.
Okay, this is kind of a weird question, but I'm just trying to think of kind of difficult scenarios when it comes to etiquette. So what are ladylike ways to deal with a cold or allergies?
Oh, okay. Well, again, this thing, I mean, handkerchiefs. People really freak out about the idea of them these days. But actually, in the age of sustainability, they're much better than tissues because you can wash them. You're only using them for yourself. Back to that Jane Austen thing. Do you imagine being handed a handkerchief? You've got a tear falling, something in a man hands you his handkerchief and you lock it. How much more romantic is that than here's a Kleenex?
True.
Yeah. And I would say lovely vintage handkerchiefs or even new ones are just a bit nicer thing to use, and also elevates your everyday kind of way of dealing with that. I mean, I'll admit I use tissues. Well, we have boxes of tissues around the house. I just think in public it's nicer to use something that's a little bit more kind of dainty, but then at the same time I would excuse myself if I could. So
okay, excusing yourself or having a handkerchief. And you know what I just found out is that years ago, to get a man's attention, women would drop a handkerchief so that men would see it and be like, oh, here's your handkerchief. And that was her way of getting him to talk to her if she was interested.
What a floozy.
I think it's really easy for people to imagine ways to be elegant in the evening time. But what about in the morning, especially if you have overnight guests? Like, how do you act in the morning? Yeah. Like, is it okay to have overnight guests and show up and start making them breakfast in your pajamas, for example?
I think it is. I think it depends on what your pajamas are, though. If you're sleeping in like a really ratty old t-shirt and a pair of like, what do you call pants? Underwear? Pants for
pajama pants?
Yeah. Pajama pants. Okay, no, lower than that. Knickers? Boxers?
Knickers and boxers would be like underwear to us.
Underwear, yeah, exactly. If we're thinking of making them breakfast in that, then no. But a lovely pair of pajamas that's perhaps, going to pull out that loaded word, modest, in a sense. Because, yeah, who in your overnight guests? Some of them might appreciate the underwear, I don't know.
Probably put a bra on under your silk pajama set.
Yes, or a camisole that holds you in or something like that, or a lovely dressing gown, kind of a robe. But then also, you could always get dressed.
There's always that option.
That's an option. Just get up, get dressed. I tell you what, you could even wear leggings if you wanted, because you're in your house.
You're in your house.
It's all about how presentable what you're wearing is, I think, because some people can feel quite uncomfortable. I felt quite uncomfortable before staying at other people's houses because you feel a little bit of an inconvenience.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly in England, our houses are particularly large. So you might be staying on like a sofa bed or, in a small spare room where there's no kind of like guest suite or, extra bathroom to use. So you're all kind of in each other's space in very close quarters. So I think just being very mindful of that and providing, if you're having guests, providing whatever you can to make them feel comfortable. So, even providing them a time slot for the bathroom.
If a woman is really interested in going to college, going to university, getting an education, but her ultimate goal is to be a homemaker one day, what are some major areas of study or focus that would be a good fit for her?
There are certain things that would be useful to transfer her skills to her home. So you could learn things like, hospitality management or cooking or even childcare. But honestly, if there's a particular area of study that you do want to go into, say, I don't know, marketing, which is what I did, I can still transfer those skills into home. I would just back it up with a few domestic skills. So extracurricular courses and things like that to help bolster what you're going to jump into eventually. But yeah, things like childcare, teaching, cooking, home management, stuff like that, all great areas to look to if that's what you really want to do. I would also be mindful that you might need to jump into them again at some point, maybe because you have to,
right,
or maybe because you want to. So I think this is the thing, everyone's saying, you must get an education, for the what ifs. And I kind of agree in that sense, because it's always clever to do that, but it's not a must. You've got to just be really confident, I think, in being able to turn your hand to anything. So if you just want to be a mummy, don't want to go to college, do that. If you've got the conviction, do it. Follow it. Live your life and your path. I wish I'd done it myself.
I like to check from time to time and see what the most popular episodes of The Spillover are. In our back end of our analytics, it'll list out our top 5 most listened to episodes. And I heard that the guest of our second most listened to episode of The Spillover ever just got asked to speak at Turning Point USA's Young Women's Leadership Conference. Now, which guest do you think that is, if you had to guess? I am freaking out. And I heard that she's going to be doing a Q&A. There are just so many surprises to be experienced at YWLS this year. Don't miss out on the biggest conference for conservative women in the country this June 9th through 11th in Dallas, Texas at the Gaylord Hotel. The biggest female speakers in the conservative movement will be encouraging you, inspiring you, and motivating you on how we can take back this country. The theme is 70s, so plan your outfits accordingly. All frequently asked questions can be answered at tpusa.com/YWLS, where you can also get your tickets. Go to tpusa.com/YWLS and use code POPLITICS for a discount. I'll see you in a few weeks. I have to tell you something. I was so sad when you decided to deactivate your Instagram for the Darling Academy, because you had the most gorgeous Instagram. It was like a magical place. And I was like, of course, she decided to get rid of this before this interview. But you had a really big decision to make, and you made that decision to deactivate the Darling Academy Instagram with a lot of thought. Talk about that with us.
Yeah, I realized actually the trolling was horrific, first and foremost. I think any woman today sticking her head above the parapet and saying, I don't want to follow the cultural norms of the day, is going to attract a lot of negative attention. So I also realized I was on there because it was just what people do. I went to work because that's what people do. I am sad too. I used to look at myself and go, oh, isn't this really pretty? Look at all my highlights. Look at this highlight reel of, funny, I didn't take a picture of myself cleaning the toilet. Oh, funny that, oh, look, there's no picture of me when I've got the flu. Weird. Do you know what I mean? I realized just how much it kind of, as positive and lovely as it was, and people got really nice things out of it. I think social media can be a little bit dangerous to the fact that we start comparing our lives to other people. And I had women say to me, I can't be a traditional housewife or a housewife. I don't wear dresses all the time, or I don't have long blonde hair, or I don't like vintage, or I don't like pink. I've only got, I haven't got any children, or things like that. I think it was becoming a tool whereby people were comparing themselves to my life and what I was showing them. which is why I deactivated it, which in marketing terms and things like that, it's a stupid move.
You mean why? Because it's a good way to promote your business?
It's really good. It's a fantastic tool in that sense. But as much as it would promote it, it would also attract a lot of weirdos. There are weirdos on it.
How has being off of Instagram impacted your business? Like, do you feel like you're doing okay without it? Because some people are desperate to get off of that app, but they're too scared because they're like, would I lose a lot of business?
Yeah, well, actually, this is the thing. So people are quite confused with what I say. I'm a housewife first and foremost. I've written 2 books, which are self-published, which are available on Amazon, Ladies Like Us and English Etiquette. And yeah, it'd be silly of me to say, like, I want you to go and buy them. It helps us, our family finance. Everyone has the luxury of being able to do that. But I don't want people also to find those books unless they're fated to find it. So I had a really big influencer, a massive YouTuber, buy my book because she saw another YouTuber buying it. And her lifestyle and my lifestyle are wildly different. And I thought, she is going to influence her 1 million followers to buy this book. And then they're going to get it. And they're going to be like, what on earth is this crazy Christian woman talking about? Oh my goodness. And then they're going to go on Amazon and write 4 reviews. Like, if that's the payoff, I don't want your money. And
what ended up happening?
I sold some. It was fabulous. And thankfully, the world didn't implode. But it was a wake-up call to me that I thought, actually, my message is for people that are looking for it. And you don't need to use every tool. Like, just because, I haven't even looked at setting up a TikTok account because maybe I don't need it. Maybe you don't need Instagram. Businesses survived before it, and they will survive afterwards. I've been blogging for probably well over 10 years now. And I'm still able to blog before Instagram became a thing. So yeah, as much as the pretty pictures are gone, I don't think it had that much of a difference. Made that much of a difference, to be honest.
What is your wish for young women growing up today?
Oh, wow. My wish for young women is that the promise will actually be fulfilled, that they can be whatever they want to be, even if that means being a housewife and a mum. Because that was a promise that was given to me. And I don't know, are you familiar with George Orwell?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so it's a very Animal Farm thing. I realize it. All animals are equal, except some are more equal than others. And that's what I kind of am starting to feel about feminism and women's identity politics. Is you are only truly fulfilling the work that's gone before you as a woman if you are a career woman and fully focused on that. You cannot be fully focused on your family. That's not cool these days.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, it's not acceptable to them.
No, not acceptable. Which is, I thought feminism meant choice.
Prepare yourself for what I'm about to tell you. Non-organic cotton in regular tampons may contain trace amounts of the pesticide glyphosate, which is an herbicide used to kill weeds and potentially carcinogenic. If you're avoiding glyphosate in your foods by shopping organic and non-GMO, then you should be buying organic tampons as well. Tampons are another thing that you're putting into your body, and your magic conch is 100 times more absorbent than your mouth. If you want to switch out your feminine products for a cleaner option, choose Garnu. Why? Because their tampons are 100% organic, made without titanium dioxide, chlorine, fragrances, or dyes. They use a BPA-free plastic applicator, and a huge bonus, they're conservative owned. Did you know that most tampon brands fund Planned Parenthood or support abortion? Garnu is one of the only tampon brands that doesn't. Our cycles as women are designed for life, and Garnu values life. Your tampons will be set up on a schedule and mailed to your door just in time for your strawberry week every month. You can buy one time or via a subscription. They also have menstrual cups and organic pads are coming soon. Go to garnu.com/spillover with code spillover to receive 15% off your first month of organic tampons. That's garnuu.com/spillover with code spillover. The code can be used for one-time purchases as well, not just subscriptions. You have to buy tampons anyway. So support conservative small businesses that are better for your body and the country. Shop Garnu with the link in the show notes. That's what they tell us. That's what they tell us, Alena.
Yeah. I'm don't get me wrong. Feminism again is so loaded. I fully believe in a woman's right to education, a woman's right to do, what she wants as a career and for her life, look how she wants it to look. But it's lies. It's lies. Unfortunately, feminism now is about women's superiority. It's about elevation of women, and it's about working to the bone. And you cannot have it all. You cannot have it all at the same time. You can have a career and you can have a family, but it's really hard to mix the two.
Yep.
No one talks about that.
That's the important truth, I think, that a lot of people do avoid. Even the pro-life conservative Christians avoid that conversation of, telling women that, you can have it all. It's just that it might need to be at different times in your life. You might need to separate them for a little bit. You know what I mean? Wait till the kids go out of the house, then pursue doing your dream job or do that for, you're going to have to make sacrifices and choices.
Exactly. We don't talk about fertility either, natural biological fertility.
Well, let me tell you what's really scary. I don't know if you've noticed this, but here's a huge problem. With inventions like IVF and all of these different things, young girls, I'm finding, they are not considering that despite all of that, we still have biological clocks. So the problem is they're putting off things like having a family because they think, well, whenever I want, because of these new inventions, I'll be able to have children. That is not necessarily true. You still may not be able to have children if you wait too long, even with things like IVF. You know what I mean? So a lot of girls are not realizing that until they are 40-ish. And then they're like, oh my gosh, what do you mean I can't get pregnant now? I thought I could just use all these different tools.
Yeah, I think the real problem is that we're actually not talking to young girls about fertility and getting pregnant and having babies. All we're pushing is birth control and putting it off and avoiding having babies whatsoever.
Have you been able to find a lot of other women your age around where you live that have the same values and things like you, or do you feel like that is difficult?
Yeah, it's really difficult. Even church, actually. I've met a few through church, but a lot of them are still working or returning to work, mostly because they have to necessarily, not because they want to. But no, it's a very lonely existence. And I think this is another reason why it puts women off, because, this is the good thing about the Darlene case. During lockdown, especially, people were at home and going, oh my goodness, I love being at home. This is amazing. I was scared of it. I thought I'd be bored. Even my best friend yesterday, who exactly the same age as me, married with children, she has been a ardent career girl her whole life. She even admitted to me yesterday, we've moved out to the country and I want to stay home. And I'm like,
yay!
Not because I want her to do that. It's just the fact that she's finally realized kind of just how wonderful it can be. But it's really hard to meet friends. I find mine friends are mostly older than me because, I don't know, maybe retired. I hang around with a lot of older ladies.
What is your advice for women that are currently stay-at-home mothers and they are battling with loneliness?
This is where social media can be really good. I know it gets a lot of a bad reputation in terms of dividing people, especially politically. But you can find friends via social media, and it can fill those times. I've had conversations with women who said that they used to go on in the nighttime when they were feeding their babies and things. And you can get that kind of 10 minutes to catch up with someone, send them a message, and they'll send you one back. That's what's brilliant. It's really hard to give too much encouragement because I want to give encouragement, but it's hard to give a solution because when women aren't at home anymore, the communities are dead in the day, and it can feel a bit barren. So, but the more and more people that step into that role and are around and are confident enough to say, "Hey, do you stay home too?" It's conversation that's required. I've asked random women in the supermarket for coffee date.
Yeah.
Like, I'm picking up friends in the supermarket, but it worked.
Well, I know if we live close that we would be friends. I know that we have so much in common. I wish that we did. I would love nothing more than to be able to hang out with you in the English countryside. Like, that would be such a dream to me. Where can people find your books, Ladies Like Us and English Etiquette, the motivation behind the manners, and what all do you cover in these books? Give us like a summary of the topics.
Okay, so both books, Ladies Like Us and English Etiquette, are available on Amazon. Only in paperback format because, trees, I like to, I don't like Kindle books. It's not personal enough.
No,
I like a book in your hand.
I like a book in your hand too. I am right with you. I don't even own a Kindle.
Oh, fabulous. We can do that.
Yeah.
So Ladies Like Us, I call it my rise to grace. So it charts my time in kind of working as a career girl and realizing it really was not good for me. And then also, we say falls from grace all the time, but actually I feel like I did it in reverse.
Yeah.
So it's the things I learned about myself, about self-esteem. I'm a Christian as well, so there is a little bit of faith-based stuff in there, but I've written it for other people as well who don't have a faith. It's not too evangelical, I hope. And it's about stepping into your kind of feminine energy and, embracing that especially in a time where culture tells you it's wrong to do that. And then English Etiquette is about etiquette, but from a very heart-centered, other people perspective. So it's not about which fork to use, and when to stand up if someone enters a room. It's more about making other people feel comfortable in your presence, which I think is what we should all be concentrating on, is a kindness with other people. And I also blog about topics surrounding those two subjects and also being a traditional housewife over at my website, which is thedalingacademy.com. And unfortunately, you can't follow me on Instagram anymore, and that feels nice to say that.
The Darling Academy website is lovely. It is so beautiful. I really encourage you to go check that out because her articles are so inspiring and it's just got a lovely aesthetic, and she has recipes and how-tos, and you cover so many deep topics. I'm like, how do I show etiquette in this scenario, and just it's a really well done website. So everyone should check that out. Get her books. Alena, thank you so much, despite the time difference, for coming on the Spillover.
That's absolutely fine. And come over to England and have a cup of tea.
She's like a conservative Mary Poppins or something, isn't she? Adore her. Next month, we're going to go back to our normal grab bag of interviews where every episode is random, but there has been a slight change. The first 2 weeks of June, I am basically sticking with this theme of, what I did for May's for the Moms, just because of who I was able to have on the show. It was kind of a happy accident. I was going to just release these interviews randomly later, but then we realized behind the scenes that both of them needed to come out right away. The first will come out next week, and it is going to be the ultimate homeschooling episode. Every single stereotype or assumption that you have about homeschooling, reasons you think you can't do it, will be debunked. Even single moms or two-parent working households. My guest is huge in the homeschooling space, and I was going to release it in August for back to school because that made sense to me because I'm not a homeschooling parent. And then she told me, she's like, no, Alex, this has to come out sooner rather than later because if parents are going to pull their kids out of school next year and start homeschooling, that planning basically has to happen now. So that is coming out next week. Then the week after that, I have the coolest guest ever that happens to align perfectly with YWLS because she helped write all the feminist propaganda for fashion magazines in the 60s and 70s before deciding, you know what, I cannot keep lying to women anymore. That is going to be an incredible interview. And with this 70s theme of YWLS this year, it was just really too perfect to not release it the second week of June. So those you have to look forward to. And then we're going to go back to having like random guests. And yes, I know, true crime, all that stuff. Do not worry. It's all in the chamber this summer. Special needs parenting and adoption, pro-life atheists. Yes, that's a real thing. I didn't know that either. What you should actually be eating while pregnant and more. All of the random topics that you know and love. It's going to be packed the next couple of months and we're just getting started. Every week, make sure that you leave a 5-star review. Charlie Kirk reads your reviews. So if you love the Spillover, say something nice because he reads it. Every week, we're back with a brand new episode. They release Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Pacific or midnight Eastern time, anywhere you get your podcast. If you like to watch the show, you can do that by subscribing to Politics on YouTube. I'm Alex Clark, and this is The Spillover. Love you, mean it. Bye.